Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my 15 waiver wire ads for week number 8 of the 2024 fantasy football season, going in depth through every single waiver wire ad, and I will be explaining to you guys why I believe you need to head on over to the waiver wire and pick up these players before it's too late and week number 8 begins. But before we can get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 8 waiver wire pickups for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with my number 1 waiver wire ad of the week, and that is Romeo Doubs, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville this week. Romeo Doubs is currently rostered in 44% of leagues on Yahoo, so it's important to note that if you play on NFL, CBS, ESPN, Sleeper, any of those other fantasy football platforms, then the rostership percentage is going to be slightly different. Though I will note in some cases there might actually be a drastic difference from platform to platform or website to website. Romeo Doubs was the wide receiver 12 last week in PPR. Also important to note that all of these finishes are prior to the doubleheader on Monday Night Football tonight. The video is coming out before Monday Night Football, and it's being recorded prior to Monday Night Football, so I'm not going to rub the crystal ball and tell you magically where Romeo Doubs will finish by the end of the night. It's likely he falls outside the top 12, but he still had a great performance up against a strong Texans defense. 8 receptions on 10 targets for 94 yards, which marks back-to-back games with 17 or more fantasy points. In terms of snaps, he led the team both in snaps and targets. Reed played 43, Doubs played 48, Watson 31, Dontavian Wicks 24, and Bo Melton 8. I won't guarantee that Romeo Doubs is going to lead the team in targets every single week because of how good Jaden Riley Reed is, but in an offense that can kick the teeth in of the defense game in and game out, and in a wet dream matchup up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, if Romeo Doubs is available, you definitely want to run to the waiver wire and pick him up. At number 2, we got Alexander Mattison, running back of the Las Vegas Raiders, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs this week. 54% rostered on Yahoo. Running back 15 last week in PPR. At the Los Angeles Rams, Mattison had 23 carries for 92 yards, as well as 3 receptions on 3 targets for 31 yards. Zamir White did return last week, but saw a very minute amount of snaps, just 14% of the snaps, and only a handful of touches. It is very clear to me that the team does not want to play with Zamir White anymore, that Alexander Mattison is the guy. Now, I'm not going to sit here and hit Alexander Mattison with the Hawk Tua special and tell you just how great of a running back is, because frankly, I do not believe that. But in fantasy football, volume is king, and even without Devontae Adams, and with the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, the woes of this Raiders offense, I still do strongly believe that Alexander Mattison has significant upside game in and game out, because the guy has a nose for the end zone, and because he sees a respectable amount of targets every single week. Next up, we move to player number 3 here, Jauan Jennings, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Dallas Cowboys at home in Santa Clara. 30% rostered on Yahoo for Mr. Jennings. Now, Jauan Jennings did miss last week with a hip injury and didn't practice at all prior to that game up against the Chiefs, so it is something to monitor if he's going to be good to go up against Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, a disgrace of a team who's coming out of the bye. Now, they don't have Brandon Ayuk because Brandon Ayuk is done for the season. Jauan should slide in as the wide receiver number 2 behind Deebo Samuel. Now, Deebo was sick last week, and not like in the cool way, right, where Tony Hawk hits a sick fucking 360, Titty Knack hits a 360. I don't even know any like skateboarding terms off the top of my head, but like a totally sick move. No, Deebo was actually ill, you know, motherfucker, I'm ill, not sick. But Jauan Jennings, teammate Deebo, was actually sick, so that's why he didn't really play much last week. And if you saw the picture of him before the game, people were joking that he looks like fat James Harden, when in reality, he was just bloated from being incredibly sick, so I hope he is okay. It looked like multiple times when they panned to him on the sideline that the dude was ready to throw up. Back in week 3, we saw Jauan Jennings put up a 46.5 point performance up against the Rams. Now, he had 11 receptions on 12 targets for 175 yards and not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns. while there's a bigger chance that Sydney Sweeney comes over here and buries me in a rack, I do believe that Jauan Jennings ripping off 40-plus points is a very low chance to happen again, right? It's higher that Sydney Sweeney comes over here and gives me the Sukala Mink, okay? But, with Debo and Kittle there, I still think there's a good chance that with how Brock Purdy has played, I know he didn't look the best last week, but I think Purdy's still solid. I think that leaves Jauan Jennings as a solid wide receiver 3/flex option. All right, so we're just going to cut on in here. This is future Nick. You're already watching this video. We're just going to cut on in here. So it's been reported that Debo Samuel is dealing with pneumonia, so it sounded like I was joking about his sickness. I apologize again. I never mean that. I don't think you guys should take every single thing I take seriously. The fantasy advice is very serious, but the other things I'm kind of just joking around. But what I'm trying to say here is he's dealing with pneumonia. He is in the hospital. If Debo Samuel does not play up against the Dallas Cowboys, that moves Jauan Jennings from being like, oh, the wide receiver 3 type of flex range into being like a clear wide receiver 2 with top 12 upside. So I just thought that was important to note since it just came out literally as I was recording this. I checked my phone after I finished recording and doing the outro, and I saw, oh, Debo's got pneumonia, so I hope he's okay. I'll be rooting for his health, but if he does end up missing, that will give a nice boost up to Jauan Jennings, as well as, spoiler alert, Ricky Pearsall, who we'll be talking about a little bit later. Next up, we move to Mr. Corvette JuJu Smith-Schuster going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas this week. Now, JuJu is not going to be playing in this game due to a hamstring injury, but once he returns, he is, in my opinion, the wide receiver 1 on the Chiefs in terms of targets. And when you can get the wide receiver 1 on a Patrick Mahomes offense, I know Patrick Mahomes doesn't look like the best quarterback in the NFL right now. The value is there, especially in the Rashee Rice role. I understand that a lot of people picked up JuJu last week because I told them to, and he ended up bending them directly over a table without the use of spit or lube, but ultimately, JuJu got hurt in that game early on, so sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes you play a guy, and he gets whacked, and then you don't get any fantasy points. That's exactly what happens with JuJu. I am not going to be panicking about that. I get if you want a wide receiver that's going to play this week, you need someone to fill in, even though there's no bye weeks, you're panicking, then sure, Jauan Jennings definitely a better option than JuJu, but if we're talking about season long, JuJu being the number 1 receiver on the Chiefs, to me, has higher value than Jauan Jennings. So if you wanted to put JuJu ahead of Jauan Jennings, I wouldn't argue with you with that. Next up, we got Keon Coleman, wide receiver of the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills at the Seattle Seahawks. 33% rostered on Yahoo for Keon Coleman, wide receiver 14 in PPR last week up against the Titans, ranking 1 spot behind Amari Cooper, his new teammate who was the wide receiver 13. Keon Coleman actually told Amari Cooper on that touchdown play what route to run. Josh Allen, I believe, audibled on that play, and Amari Cooper was confused because he showed up there fucking 5 seconds ago. Keon told him what to do. He ran the route. Touchdown. Beautiful sight to behold. Keon Coleman in that game still P8 though. 4 receptions on 7 targets for 125 yards. And he tied for the top of the team in terms of target share with 21.2%. I don't think Coleman is a must-start player by any means. But with the rise of Cooper in this offense, that's going to make things a whole lot easier for Coleman. He's going to be facing up against a worse defensive back game in and game out. Up against Seattle, this could be a great performance out of Keon Coleman. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like you need Keon Coleman in your lineup this week. Again, especially there's no teams on bye. I'm not trying to force him into my lineup, but the upside is very, very clearly there, especially up against the Seattle Seahawks defense that looks more deflated than Tom Brady's balls. Next up, we got Cedric Tillman, wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Baltimore Ravens. And this is the first time I've ever seen a player, he doesn't have like a 0.2% ownership, rostership on Yahoo. The motherfucker, it just doesn't say anything. There's no rostership, no ownership percentage, so 0% on Yahoo. Wide receiver 9 in PPR last week up against the Bungles. 8 receptions on 12 targets for 81 yards. He was second on the team in targets behind Njoku, so he had 12. Njoku, the Chief, had 14. Behind that was Elijah Moore with 7 and Judge Judy with 5. In terms of snaps, Judy played 85%. Right behind him was Cedric Tillman with 82%. Elijah Moore had 64%. And Jalen Darden, who the fuck is that guy, had 13%. So losing Deshaun Watson is a huge bump for any of the weapons in Cleveland. Jameis Winston is one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch in the NFL. Why? Because he does stupid shit with the football. He will point like Babe Ruth trying to hit a home run out of the park, and he'll say, fuck it, Cedric Tillman out there somewhere, YOLO, throw it into quadruple coverage, right? Which could lead to a pick or one of the craziest catches you've ever seen. Jameis is way more fun to watch than Deshaun Watson, so that's going to help out Cedric Tillman and the wide receivers here a ton. I'm not going to pretend like it's a stone cold lock that Cedric Tillman's the clear wide receiver one there. Honestly, I think Jerry Jeudy is, but with all things said here, I think with Jameis, this could really boost up this offense, take them to a whole nother level, which could make Cedric Tillman very, very exciting. Not a guy that I'm clamoring to throw into my lineup, but he is a guy that I think is a solid stash, because if it happens again against the Ravens, then there is a strong reason to believe that Cedric Tillman would be like the number one or the number two ad in the waiver wire column next week. Next up, we move to Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers versus the Dallas Cowboys. Pearsall is rostered in 13% of leagues on Yahoo. The motherfucker got shot and he's still breathing. Ricky Pearsall playing on Sunday was a beautiful sight to behold. I was so happy that he got to play football again because someone tried to steal his watch. He ended up getting tagged, but now he's all good and he's playing. So congratulations to Pearsall. That dude has max aura, though he only had 3 receptions on 5 targets for 21 yards in his return. But again, Brock Purdy looked a little bit dysfunctional, like your cock after you drink too much whiskey. So I'm not too worried about that. Pearsall played 76% of the snaps last week. Chris Conley played 70%. Ayuk 40%. Ronnie Bell 38%. And Jacob Cowing 19%. Jauan Jennings should be ahead of him on the hierarchy. So should Debo. But I think there's a potential that since they drafted Ricky Pearsall this year, they keep trying to ramp Pearsall up, and he ends up Pearsall, however the fuck you want to say his name. He ends up taking over higher than Jauan Jennings. I think that is a possibility. So for that reason alone, I want him on my roster, especially since Ayuk is out for the season. Next up, we move to my main man, Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the Arizona Cardinals this week at home in the 305 Dale. 46% rostered on Yahoo. Now, Tua Tagovailoa has not played since back in week 2 in the matchup where he suffered the concussion up against the Bills. In that game prior to the injury, Tua was seeing ghosts like his name was Sam Darnold. 17 completions on 25 attempts. That doesn't look that bad. 145 yards, no bueno. He had a touchdown, but the motherfucker threw 3 picks. Now, he was probably potentially going to score a touchdown before he ran headfirst into Damar Hamlin. But that's another story. That game still haunts me. Like I'm in Luigi's Mansion. I was very disappointed with that showing, especially when Tua got hurt. But now Tua's back. The Dolphins' potential savior. As a Dolphins fan, I am bricked up under the table thinking about it. In terms of fantasy, I love this spot against the Cardinals. I'm not going to get too high and mighty, though, because he did look rusty in those first 2 games, even in that win up against the Jaguars, where Tyreek got arrested 5 seconds before the game. But Cardinals defense is not very good, so I do expect Tua, realistically, to carve up the defense like a pumpkin on Halloween. But again, I'm not going to sit here and just bang the drum aggressively for him, like, must start Tua Tagovailoa, because he could be a little bit rusty. He might have to shake that rust off like his name was Taylor Swift. Moving on to waiver wire ad number 9 here. We got Bo Nix, Big Dick Bo, quarterback of the Denver Broncos, going up against the Carolina Panthers, 13% rostered on Yahoo. If you're paying attention to my quarterback talking about last week, my whereabouts on my thoughts on Bo Nix, I said I didn't love him up against the Saints. He had 16 completions on 26 attempts for 164 yards, 10 rushes for 75 yards as the quarterback, 13. So again, not a great finish, not a terrible finish on Thursday Night Football. I didn't love him, but what I said last week was that I was ecstatic about his matchup up against the Carolina Panthers defense that can't stop anyone. So I think Bo Nix is about to go nuclear in this spot. But before we talk about Bo Nix a little bit more and the rest of the waiver wire ads, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, you'll be able to claim your free pick, which tonight is going to be Kyler Murray, higher than half a total yard. You match that with any of the players playing tonight on Monday Night Football, not on the Cardinals or anyone playing on Thursday, Sunday, Monday next week, and you receive 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher. So make sure you sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description to get your free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. If you're watching this on Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're like, oh, Kyler already played, if you import promo code Notorious or click on the link in the video description, you will just get a different free pick, something very similar to Kyler higher than half of a total yard, and you'll also be able to receive the first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So back to Bo Nix. When it comes to Bo Nix, last week was actually his worst showing over the last 3 games with 20 or more points in the prior 2 games. In a wet dream spot up against the Panthers, I think Nix could go hard in the paint. Flocka at number 10, we move to Mizzle Hunter Henry, tight end of the New England Deflatriots, going up against the New York Jumbo Jets at home in Foxborough. 31% rostered on Yahoo in London last week up against the Jaguars, despite the fact that I didn't think the offense looked as good as I thought they would, especially because, again, the Jaguars defense has more holes than a Swiss cheese. Hunter Henry still played very well. 8 receptions on 9 targets for 92 yards as the tight end number 4, back-to-back weeks with 13-plus PPR points. He's clearly one of the top targets on the team, and in any given game, he could be the number 1 target. Now, I don't want to be another guy that's given fellatio to their starting quarterback at this point, because everyone seems to be giving some rub downs to Mr. Draco May, giving him some massages like his name was Deshaun Watson, and I'm not going to sit here and just continue to suck on the guy, metaphorically, of course, but Hunter Henry, we know he's a talented tight end. We've always known this. It's just the quarterback play has kind of let him down. Back in the day when he was on the Chargers with the Phillip Rivers, the old man himself, he was doing good. But recently, the quarterback play has held him down. But now, with how Drake May is looking, I'm feeling nicey about Hunter Henry as a potential top 5 tight end going forward. Next up, we move to Ray Davis, running back of the Buffalo Bills, going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle, 26% rostered on Yahoo. Now, despite the fact that Ray Davis had to take a back seat because James Cook was back, Ray Davis hyped the Tennessee Titans defense like Ray J piped Kim Kardashian. Running back 17 on the week in PPR versus the Tennessee Titans, 5 rushes for 41 yards and a touchdown. Again, not a crazy amount of volume, but he did perform with the amount of volume that he got. 5 rushes, 41 yards, and a touchdown. 1 reception on 1 target for 6 yards. Now, he's definitely more of a stash play because with Cook in there, you're never really going to want to start Ray Davis because you kind of need the team to be pummeling. The Bills need to pummel the defense in order to get Davis in there. But if you're really down bad at running back and you need a spot start, there are definitely worse options than Ray Davis. So if something was to happen to Cook, right, and he just somehow goes down like his name was Uncle Junior, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, then Ray Davis might be a must start. Not might be. He will be. Next up, we got Tyler Goodson, evildoer. His brother, Tyler Batson, that was a shitty joke. Running back, Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Texans, 14% rostered on Yahoo. Now, Tyler Goodson took over the backfield last week. Even if the snaps didn't technically tell you that, Sermon played 52%, Goodson 48%. Goodson was the running back 19 last week in PPR up against my Dolphins, a team that can't stop the run if you pay them, and that's exactly what we pay them for, and they can never stop the run. It's so fucking annoying as a Dolphins fan, but it is what it is. 14 rushes for 51 yards and a touchdown. Again, while the snaps went Sermon's way, it is important to understand that there's a big but in this scenario. Shout out to Lana Rhodes. Sermon had just 8 rushes for 36 yards and 1 reception for 13 yards. If you recall, right, Sermon, 36 yards on 8 rushes and 13 receiving yards. Mr. Goodson, 14 rushes for 51 yards and a touchdown. So more rushes, and he had a touchdown, which is very nice. So it appears Goodson will keep chopping away at the snaps and touches, assuming JT misses again. Now, Jonathan Taylor has been out since September 29th, which is basically a month at this point with the high ankle sprain. The belief is that he may be back this week. The belief was after he got hurt, oh, he's going to be back in the next game, Nick. Don't panic at all. Even though high ankle sprains are always bad, don't worry. It's just minor. Don't worry. And he's been out since then. So if you're a Jonathan Taylor owner, you definitely want to snag Goodson. If you're down bad at running back and want a potential high upside play, because again, if Jonathan Taylor does not play, Goodson is a high upside play who you can throw into your lineup. Next up, we got Sean Tucker Carlson, running back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going up against the Atlanta Falcons at home in Tampa Bay. Fire the cannons, 20% rostered on Yahoo. Sean Tucker plays tonight up against the Ravens, so we will see how this three-headed backfield potentially turns out, and using that information, we will help make a better decision on how high up the rankings, because he could skyrocket up the rankings, right? He could go very high, he could go very low, or potentially to a spot where you don't even want to fucking pick the guy up. Week 6 up against the Saints, he went crazy. In New Orleans, there is no other way to describe it other than complete and utter domination. He kicked the door in and was relentless. 14 carries for 136 yards and a touchdown. He also had 3 receptions on 3 targets for 56 yards, and you guessed it, a touchdown. This motherfucker had over 170 total yards and 2 touchdowns, while playing 38% of the snaps to Bucky Irving 64%. Now, inserting Rashad with 2A's White into this backfield does make things a little bit more confusing. So again, this isn't a crystal clear situation right now before the game tonight up against the Ravens. After tonight's game, we might have some more information. It might still be very cloudy. So after the game, you can ask me more questions. I'll be talking about Sean Tucker, Rashad White, and Mr. Bucky Irving in the running back start sit video as well. It comes out on Tuesday, tomorrow, or today if you're watching on Tuesday. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and make sure you guys do check that out. Next up, we got the Russian running back, Kimani Vidal, running back of the Los Angeles Chargers versus the New Orleans Saints this week at home in LA. Now, just like with what we discussed with Sean Tucker the fucker, Vidal plays tonight up against the Cardinals, so we'll kind of see how this snap split looks between him and Dobbins. To me, I think it's going to be pretty clear that Dobbins is the guy. Last time out up against the Broncos, we saw in Denver in Mile High, Dobbins had 73% of snaps and Vidal 24% in his rookie debut. Again, I feel pretty confident that'll be something similar. Maybe Vidal cuts slightly more into the touches, like OT Genesis, but I don't think it will be a crazy amount to where like Vidal just magically takes over unless Dobbins get hurt. Knock on wood. We don't root for injuries, especially for a guy like Dobbins who gets hurt lacing his cleats again. Knock on wood, knock on wood, knock on wood. We don't root for injuries. I love J.K. Dobbins. I told you guys all summer to draft him, so you got him. 21 last week, or week 6, up against the Broncos. Running back 21. Can you do something for me? 4 rushes for 11 yards, 2 receptions on 2 targets, and a touchdown. So, again, not going to sit here and pretend like he's going to take over Dobbins, but when you have a running back that's as injury prone as Dobbins, again, knock on wood, knock on wood, knock on wood, having that backup, that's a high leverage spot, a guy that is talented coming out of college. There is reason to own him again, especially if you're really down bad at running back and you need these dart throws on your roster. Final guy here is my guy, JuJu Smith, tight end of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the Arizona Cardinals this week at home in Miami. 4% rostered on Yahoo. Tight end 2 last week in PPR at the Indianapolis Colts. 7 receptions on 7 targets for 96 yards and a tug. Back-to-back weeks with 7 or more targets. Now, it's important to note that those are back-to-back games without Tua Tagovailoa, but back against Buffalo Bills. Back against Buffalo Bills. That makes sense. Back against the Buffalo Bills. Last time Tua played, we saw that JuJu had 7 targets. Now, again, I'm not going to pretend that he is a lock to continue his great success that he's had over the last couple of games, but at such a volatile position, like the tight end, where you could basically close your eyes and just start someone, right? Unless you have like Brock Bowers or one of these guys that's just a lock every single week to score a bunch of fucking fantasy points. You're down bad, like, he was a guy you would consider starting. So I feel fine taking the flyer on him. So thank you guys all so much. But again, I do definitely like Hunter Henry a lot more than JuJu Smith because I feel a lot safer with the Hunter Henry take, right? We've seen Drake May with Hunter Henry multiple times. We've seen JuJu Smith with Tua twice, and he only had 1 decent game. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. Follow me on Twitter or X at NotoriousSFantasy. If you like access to my weekly rankings, as well as a guaranteed answer to any question you might have, check out the Patreon link in the video description for $7.50 a month. Love you guys all so much. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog if you are new. You sign up with promo code Notorious to claim your free pick. Kyler Murray higher than half a total yard if you're watching this on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, anytime not on Monday and the game already kicked off, you will get a different pick higher than half of a total yard, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. I love you guys more than you'll ever know. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, good boy!